Chapter 6 Adapted version of Elie Wiesel, Night, 2016. The government made 2 ghettos in our city of Siget. There was a large ghetto in the center of the city and a small ghetto on the outside of the city. The street we lived on was in the first ghetto. We stayed in our house, but we had to cover our windows because we faced the outside of the ghetto. Little by little, life returned to normal. In fact, we felt the ghetto was not such a bad thing. We were with only other Jews, a small Jewish republic. A Jewish government was elected, as well as a Jewish police force, a welfare agency, a labor agency, and a health agency. People thought this was a good thing. We did not have to look at all those angry faces with hate-filled eyes. No more fear. We could live among Jews, among brothers. Most people thought that we could remain in the ghetto until the end of the war. We were waiting for the Russian army to come. Then we thought everything would go back to normal, and everyone could go back to their homes. The ghetto was ruled by neither German nor Jew. It was ruled by illusion. One night, my father, as a leader in the community, was called to talk to the police. We waited for hours for him. We were anxious for the news. "The news is terrible," my father said at last. And then one word: transports. All of the Jews in the ghetto had to leave. They would start moving Jews street by street. "Where will they take us?" we asked. That was a secret for all except one, the president of the Jewish government. He could not tell anyone, or the Gestapo would shoot him. "There are rumors," my father said, his voice breaking, "that we are being taken somewhere in Hungary to work in the factories." After a moment's silence, he added, "Each of us will be allowed to bring a few things: a backpack, some food, a few items of clothing, nothing else." Again, a heavy silence. "Go and wake up the neighbors," said my father. "They must get ready." Chapter 7 Suddenly, Batia Reich, a family member who lived with us, entered the room. "Someone is knocking at the window, the one that faces outside of the ghetto." It was only after the war that I found out who had knocked that night. It was a Hungarian police officer, a friend of my father's. Before we entered the ghetto, he had told us, "Don't worry. I'll tell you if there's danger." Had he been able to speak to us that night, we could have escaped. But by the time we finally opened the window, it was too late. There was nobody outside. Chapter 8 The ghetto was awake. It was midnight. I went into the house of one of my father's friends. "Get up, sir, get up! You must ready yourself for the journey. Tomorrow we will all leave. You and your family, you and all the other Jews." "Where to? Please don't ask me, sir." "Don't ask questions. Only God can answer you. Please, get up," I said to the man. He had no idea what I was talking about. He probably thought I was crazy. "What are you saying? Get ready for the journey? What journey? Why? What is happening?" At last he understood. He got out of bed and began to put on his clothes. Then he went over to the bed where his wife was sleeping. Then he went to wake his 2 children. I quickly left the house. Time went by quickly. It was already 4 o'clock in the morning. My father was running right and left, speaking to friends, checking with the Jewish government just in case the police had changed their mind. To the last moment, people were hoping things would change. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. "All Jews outside, hurry!" shouted the Hungarian police. The police told us, "The time has come. You must leave all this." The Hungarian police used the end of their rifles, their clubs, to hit old men and women and even children. One by one, the Jews left their houses and the streets, filled with people carrying backpacks and objects. By 10 o'clock, everyone was outside. The police were taking attendance once, twice, 20 times. The heat was horrible. Sweat came from people's faces and bodies. Children were crying for water. Water? There was water close by inside the houses, the backyards, but they were prohibited from getting it. "Water, mother, I'm thirsty," said a child. At last, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, came the signal to leave. On everyone's back there was a backpack, in everyone's eyes tears and despair. Slowly the people walked toward the entrance of the ghetto, and there I was on the sidewalk, watching them walk past, unable to move. The scene did not feel real. It was like a page from a book. They passed me by, one after the other. My teachers, my friends, the others, all those whose lives I had shared for years. There they went, with defeat. Their backpacks, their lives in their hands, leaving behind their homes. They passed me by like beaten dogs, with never a look in my direction. There was a little of everything on the street. Suitcases, bags, knives, dishes, checkbooks, papers, photos. All the things the Jews planned to take and finally left behind. These things did not matter anymore. Open homes everywhere. Open doors and windows looked out into the empty streets. These things belonged to everyone, since they no longer belonged to anyone. It was there for the taking, an open tomb, a summer sun. Chapter 9. We spent the day without food, but we were not really hungry. We were exhausted. "When will it be our turn?" I asked my father. "The day after tomorrow, Tuesday, unless things change. A miracle, maybe." Where were the people being taken? Did anyone know yet? No, it was still a secret. Monday night, my mother made us go to bed early. To keep our strength, she said. It was to be the last night spent in our house. I was up very early. I wanted to have time to pray before leaving. At 9 a.m., the policemen were swinging clubs and shouting, "All Jews outside!" I looked at my house in which I had spent years looking for my God. I did not feel sadness. My mind was empty. We stood, we were counted, we sat down, we got up again, over and over. My father was crying. It was the first time I saw him cry. I never thought it was possible for him to cry. I looked at my little sister, Tzipporah, her blonde hair nicely combed, her red coat over her arm, a little girl of 7. On her back, a bag too heavy for her. Here and there, the police were beating people with their clubs. "Faster!" I had no strength left. The journey had just begun, and I already felt so weak. "Faster! Faster! Move, you lazy good-for-nothings!" the Hungarian police were screaming. That was when I began to hate them, and my hate remains our only connection today. They were our first oppressors. They were the first faces of hell and death. They ordered us to run. We began to run. Who would have thought that we were so strong? From behind their windows, our non-Jewish neighbors watched as we passed. We finally arrived at our destination. Throwing down our backpacks, we dropped to the ground and prayed, "O God, Master of the universe, in your infinite compassion, have mercy on us." Chapter 10. The Small Ghetto. We went to stay in the small ghetto to wait for our transport train. We still had hope that things would change. "We cannot give up. We cannot give up," my mother kept repeating. There were no guards in the small ghetto. We could enter and leave if we wanted. Maria, a Christian and a woman who had been our maid, came to the ghetto to see us. Crying, she begged us to come with her to her village, where she had prepared a safe shelter. My father would not let us go. He told me and my big sisters, "If you want, you can go there. I will stay with your mother and the little one." Naturally, we refused to be separated. Chapter 12. Saturday was the day for our deportation. On Friday night, we sat down to the traditional Friday night dinner. We said our prayers over the bread and the wine and ate the food in silence. We knew this would be the last time we would have dinner together. I spent that night going over memories and ideas and was unable to sleep. In the morning, we were in the street, ready to leave. Our group walked to the main synagogue. The town seemed empty, but behind the windows our Christian friends from other days were probably waiting for the moment when they could go into our homes and steal our money and jewelry. The synagogue looked like a large train station, baggage and tears. The next morning we walked toward the station, where cattle cars were waiting. The Hungarian police made us climb into the cars, 80 persons in each car. They gave us some bread, a few jugs of water. They checked the bars on the windows. The cars were closed. One person was placed in charge of every car. If someone escaped, the police would shoot the leader of the cattle car. 2 Gestapo officers walked down the train station. They were all smiles. The wheels began to move. We were on our way. Chapter 13. Lying down was not an option. There was not enough space to sit down. We decided to take turns sitting. There was little air. The lucky ones were next to a window. After 2 days of travel, thirst became horrible. So was the heat. There was still some food left, but we never ate enough to satisfy our hunger. Our idea was to save for tomorrow. Tomorrow could be worse. Suddenly, the train stopped. The door of the car was opened. A German soldier stepped in with a Hungarian soldier who was there to translate. "From this moment on, you are under the authority of the German army. Anyone who still owns gold, silver, or watches must hand them over now. Anyone who will be found to have kept any of these will be shot on the spot. Secondly, anyone who is sick should report to the hospital car. That's all." The Hungarian soldier went around with a basket and took the watches and gold of anyone who still had some. "There are 80 of you in the car," the German officer said. "If anyone goes missing, you will all be shot, like dogs." The 2 left. The doors were closed. We had fallen into the traps. The doors were nailed. The world had become one sealed cattle car.